We're breaking down the latest Boston Celtics trade rumors on today's show, but before we get started, if you love the Celtics and you like the content we're producing here on Boston Celtics Today by Chat Sports, hit that thumbs up icon and like the video. Welcome into Boston Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Chase Senior. What are we cooking up on today's show? Well, we're getting into the latest Boston Celtics trade rumors, a couple of trade ideas centering around Jaylen Brown and Damian Lillard. One trade idea includes Jaylen Brown, the other does not, which would potentially team up Jaylen Brown, Jayson Tatum, as well as Damian Lillard. Let's first get to the latest on the Portland Trailblazers. A lot of dysfunction going on within that organization, and that's why many believe that either Dame or CJ McCollum could get traded in the months leading up to the NBA trade deadline. So the Blazers as a franchise fired their general manager Neil Olshey after an investigation looked into alleged workplace misconduct. Now the Blazers are off to a really bad start this year, 11-15, bottom tier of the Western Conference, and that's why many believe that Portland could elect to rebuild under first-year head coach Chauncey Billups, kind of blow it up, and trade away one of their superstars, if not both. I think they'll probably keep one in order to surround them with the necessary pieces to try to get back into Western Conference playoff contention, but that's why this conversation is so fascinating. So is Damian Lillard or is CJ McCollum going to get dealt, and could one of them make their way to the Boston Celtics? Now, Dame is out currently right now because of an abdominal injury. He got a cortisone shot for that injury. And CJ McCollum is also hurt. He has a collapsed lung. No timetable as far as his return. Bleacher Report and Jake Fisher did come out with a report indicating that Dame would like to team up with a defensive-oriented wing, and one of those guys, Jaylen Brown. Here's that report from Bleacher Report. Quote, swapping McCollum for Ben Simmons has been a popular idea among NBA figures. Simmons is one of several defensively minded wing players who Lillard has expressed interest in playing with since the 2020 offseason, along with, get this, Jaylen Brown and Aaron Gordon, sources told Jake Fisher. There's also this, a really crazy trade idea that we're about to break down on today's show. ESPN looked at 5 big Damian Lillard trades. One of them, a trade involving the Boston Celtics that would not send away Jaylen Brown. I have said it here on the channel. I think that JT and JB can work. They're two of the top wings in the NBA. Now, the growing sample size and their lack of deep postseason success does concern me a little bit, and there are some rumblings about breaking that 1-2 punch up. But if you could bring Dame in, to pair up with those two guys, man, we're looking at a Celtics team that could be a player in a loaded Eastern Conference. So here is that trade idea from ESPN. The Portland Trailblazers would receive Juan Hernan-Gomez, Al Horford, Aaron Nesmith, Peyton Pritchard, as well as Dennis Schroeder. They would also get a multitude of picks, a 2022 first-round pick, a 2024 first-round pick, and first-round picks in 2026 and 2028 with protections, on those selections. Who would the Boston Celtics get in return? It's a pretty large package with really only one name being a star power name. That is Damian Lillard, as well as CJ Ellaby, Ben McLemore, a little bit of a bench player, so too is Tony Snell. And by trading away Al Horford in exchange for him, you get Cody Zeller, who really is a serviceable big man who can do a lot of the gritty work down in the post. I think a Tatum, Brown, and Dame trio would really make things fascinating in the Eastern Conference. And I do think that it could work, but there would have to be a bunch of sacrifices made by each of these players. And I think a big reason why Tatum and Brown haven't really won a ton of games together and this team continues to float in mediocrity around 500 is because both of those guys on the offensive end of the floor haven't made sacrifices. If you bring Dame in, that's a lot of volume. That's a lot of shot creation. That's a lot of shot attempts that has to go around on Ime Udoka's offensive system. I'm not sure if it would work or not. I think it could. I do know this. That trio and that threesome would certainly be intriguing as well as fascinating. So looking at that trade, who do you think would win it between the Celtics and the Blazers? Get into the comment section right now and let me know. Type POR for the Blazers, BOS for the Boston Celtics. Sound off in the comment section right now. It's the holiday season, and as you can see, I'm rocking my Celtics green. If you want to rock your Celtics green, you can get 50% off on this fresh Celtics hoodie by going to chatsports.com/Celtics hoodie. It was $70, now on sale for just $35, thanks to our friends at Fanatics. Why would you go out to do any holiday shopping when you can kick it at the crib, watch Boston Celtics today, and get this hoodie delivered right to your doorstep by the time that Christmas comes around? Yeah, we ain't playing around. Either is Fanatics, today's presenting sponsor. For that deal to apply, you have to use that link down below. It's going to be available in the description as well as the comment section of this video. It's chatsports.com/Celtics hoodie. Be sure to subscribe to Boston Celtics Today by Chat Sports. We are getting closer and closer to 10,000 subscribers. And if you want more content here on the channel, you have to show us love, and you have to let us know by liking the video, but also subscribing to the channel. As things begin to heat up, yeah, we're going to continue to break down everything happening with this basketball team, so make sure you hit that red subscribe button down below. Another fascinating trade idea to get to. Colin Cowherd on his show The Herd on Fox Sports Radio had discussed the current situation with the Boston Celtics right now. We know that fans are frustrated with how this team has played, not just this year, but dating back to last year. And there's been a little bit of dysfunction going on within that front office as well. And Colin Cowherd is of the notion and on the side that maybe the Celtics have to break up Jaylen Brown and Jayson Tatum. He pitched this trade idea, and let's break it down and pump the brakes. Don't go after me. We're just having an open-minded conversation here because any smart business, any smart sports organization looks forward for ways to improve. So Cowherd on swapping Brown for Dame. Quote, Boston is falling into that desperate situation. They got Jayson Tatum, and they need another star. And here's Damian Lillard. Dame and Jayson Tatum solves a lot of Boston's issues, but it also solves Portland's issues. They need to kind of rebuild, speaking of the Blazers. Portland's got to get more good players. You go to the Celtics and you play the Sixers and Celtics off each other with no intention to give Dame to the Sixers because you don't want Ben Simmons. And you go to Boston and say, this is all about leverage, by the way, I want 3 first-round picks. We'll take Jaylen Brown, who's about 70 to 75% of Dame offensively, and a much better defensive player. Then you also give me Marcus Smart, who's a great defensive player, in order to match salaries. He continued on by saying this: I don't need Marcus Smart's offense, but I need a salary to make the trade work. So Boston gets their second star, and they'll give up a little bit more because they don't want Dame ending up in Philadelphia. And right now it's Boston and Philadelphia kind of jockeying for playoff positioning within the Eastern Conference, a conference that really is as deep and as loaded as I can remember. And if Portland were to make this trade, I do think in terms of a basketball fit, that Jaylen Brown and CJ McCollum would be able to work out. You bring in Marcus Smart into that equation. You have a guy like Robert Covington and Jusuf Nurkic. That's a pretty solid team that might not compete in the Western Conference this year. In the offseason, they're going to have to make some more moves, but they kind of rebuild, reset, and move forward along the way. And I also want to ask you all this, and this is a conversation and a topic and a question that I've been asking myself. Who is the ideal fit next to Jayson Tatum? I rave about him. I think he's on the cusp of being a top 10 player. On some nights, like he did in the first quarter against the Lakers the other night in that loss, he looked like a top 10 cat. But the Boston Celtics have failed to make deep runs into the playoffs, and right now, I don't think anybody can deny that Jayson Tatum and Jaylen Brown have not worked out like the front office had anticipated and expected. The wins simply haven't been there. So who is the ideal fit next to Jayson Tatum? Is it a guy like Damian Lillard, who could take a little bit of the pressure off of Tatum and brings you offensively a completely different dynamic than a guy like Jaylen Brown, who, while is one of the best defensive players in the league, clashes with Jayson Tatum from an on-court fit and plays the identical position of Jayson Tatum. Now, Dame's numbers this year are definitely down. He's been dealing with that abdominal injury for quite some time now, which dates back to the summer during the Olympic Games in Tokyo. The numbers certainly down, 21.5 points per game, little less than 8 assists. He's shooting only 39.5% from the floor and 30% from distance. Those numbers down drastically from last last year, but could have changed the scenery, helped Damian Lillard, going to Boston, a place where he's able to get that marketability to really go from being an American superstar to a global superstar and go to a winning environment, really inject him with some newfound energy and get him out of that dysfunction in Portland. I think so. That's why we're discussing this trade idea, and boy, it would send shockwaves all throughout the NBA community. So before we get out of here, let me ask you this. Would you trade Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, and picks for Damian Lillard? Type T for trade, type P for pass. Get those votes in, and thanks for watching today's show.